Hello everyone! In this journey to Angoro deck tech, I'm going to take a look at a cheap budget Midrange Hunter deck that I used on the NA server to climb all the way to rank 4. That's right, with just 1260 dust, way less than the cost of a single legendary card, you too can build a deck that is perfectly viable to take all the way to rank 5, rank 4, even beyond. Obviously, with such a low dust cost and no adventures, mind you, some compromises need to be made. So let's take a look at how to make it work on a budget. So this is the list that I was running. There are only 5 rare cards in it. 2 copies of Golakka Crawler, 2 copies of Knife Juggler and 1 Eaglehorn Bow. Everything else in the list is either a common or from the basic set. So that's one cheap hunter list. And this kind of cheap hunter build has really been made possible by Journey to Angoro and the standard rotation. So first of all, the standard rotation took out much of the early game from Shaman, which was just overwhelming Hunter early on. And another thing is that Journey to Angoro gave Hunter a number of extremely good common cards, which increased the power level of Budget Hunter a lot. So taking a look at these common cards from Journey to Angoro, first there's the Jeweled Macaw, a 1-mana 1/1 that adds a random beast to your hand as a battle cry. And this is a really important card for Hunter. It's okay as a 1-drop, not really great to play on 1, but still okay. But that resource generation, giving the Hunter another card, that is hugely important. In a class that lacks card draw, just getting those additional resources can really help you keep going. Furthermore, of course, as a 1-mana beast, it can activate a kill command, it can be played together with a Houndmaster, lots of things that you can do with the beast synergy as well. Then there is the Crackling Razormaw. It's amazing that this card is actually a common. It's a 2-mana 3/2 with a battle cry to adapt a friendly beast. And this is huge. The power of adapt mechanic really varies a lot, but what makes Crackling Razormaw so good is that it doesn't adapt itself, because you can't get charge from adapt. You can never have an immediate effect on the board if you adapt the minion that you play, but Crackling Razormaw adapts another minion already on the board. So Wind Fury, Poisonous, Divine Shield, there are so many good things that you can get from this adapt. And it has really added to the power of Hunter. You can play a 1-drop, if your opponent is unable to remove that, you follow up with a Crackling Razormaw and you increase the power of that 1-drop. Or even later in the game, say you have a Strangleton Tiger on the board, you Crackling Razormaw that, give it Wind Fury, power, that's 10 damage. Very interesting things that you can do with this card. Nesting Rock, 5 mana, 4/7 body, Beast Tag, Taunt. What's there not to like? I mean, this is an awesome card. It's also worth noting that you don't always need the Taunt. The only thing Nesting Rock gains from Battle Cry if you have 2 other minions is Taunt. And in many matchups you don't really care about that Taunt. In some matchups it's crucial that you get those 2 minions out, you get the Taunt. You can do it with an Alleycat, for example, on turn 6, even on an empty board. Play Alleycat, that's your 2 minions. Play Nesting Rock, there's your Taunt. But in many other matchups, say you're facing something like a Taunt Warrior, you don't have to have Taunt in there. So just playing it for those 4/7 stats is perfectly fine. And whenever talking about good commons in Journey to Angoro, it's hard to not mention Firefly. Perhaps the best 1-drop in the game right now. 1-mana 1/2 that gives you another 1-mana 1/2. It also acts as a pseudo 2-drop if needed. You can play them both on 2. You can play them both with a coin if you really need to do that. It might be strange that this is mentioned in connection with Hunter, because Firefly is an elemental and not a beast. But there is a good reason for it, especially when it comes to Budget Hunter. Firefly does see some play in Hunter decks that are not budget versions, but most of the time those decks are very beast focused right now. However, when you're playing on a budget, you notice that most of the good Hunter Death Rattle cards, the cards that really give Hunter a sticky board, they're pretty expensive. Kindly Grandmother is from Karazhan, Rat Pack is an epic, Firefly fills in the spot for these more expensive beasts by giving you some tokens that you can then use with lots of other cards like Knife Juggler or like Direwolf Alpha. They don't work with the Scavenging Hyena, of course, and things that require beast synergies, but still that ability to create tokens helps Hunter gain and maintain board control. So what is the win condition of this Midrange Hunter build? It's a little bit more on the aggressive side while still not being an actual phase deck. So you want to start on the board early, it's crucial to get on the board on 1. And you have Fireflies, you have Jeweled Macaws, you have Alley Cats to help you get there. It's very, very important. And then you start by controlling the board and shift from there into dealing more and more phase damage. And that's pretty classic mid-range strategy really. Because this deck does not have the ability of more death rattle oriented, more expensive hunter decks to stay on the board no matter what, the higher end of the mana curve is directed at plays that can help you seal the deal. So there's the Strangletone Tiger. Thanks to that stealth, it's very difficult to remove. So unless the opponent has some taunts up, then that tiger is going to connect. And it's also going to help you activate, for example, Kill Command the following turn. So that's one of the things that you can do. If you happen to lose the board, the game is still not over, you still have some means to push in that final amount of damage. The deck does have some swing turn capabilities built in. So you have Knife Juggler, you have Direwolf Alpha, you have double Unleash the Hounds, and you have all sorts of tokens from Firefly, from Alley Cat. So you are able to build up board rapidly. You're able to use that board with Direwolf Alpha, with Knife Juggler, if there are beasts then with Scavenging Hyena, to swing the game, create more threats, eliminate your opponent's board. There's some potential to do that with this deck, even though Hunter is pretty bad in general in clearing boards. Another card worth mentioning that really benefits from the availability of these cheap beasts is Houndmaster. Houndmaster is such a good card. It brings 6/5 stats on the board for 4 mana, and that's nothing to scoff at. That's really good. And when you have all these cheap beasts available, even if you're already losing the board, you can also try to swing back by playing a cheap beast and Houndmastering that. Now you have 2 decent buddies on the board, just like that. And for some cases you just need a little bit of hard removal. So this deck features 1 copy of Deadly Shot. You can use Deadly Shot to push through taunts, deal more damage. You can use Deadly Shot if your opponent is focused on a single big threat. Lots of uses for Deadly Shot. Generally it helps you push more damage, save your minions, save your board, and win the game. Because this deck is pretty fast, and it also features 2 Golakka Crawlers, which eat pirates, and some taunts, it's a reasonable deck to take to a fight against a pirate warrior. It's also pretty good against Quest Rogue, it is sufficiently fast to challenge the Quest Rogue, and it can also pummel mages and priests to the ground quite nicely. However, there are some things that the budget version is missing. The more death rattle oriented Midrange Hunter, it's able to stay on the board no matter what. And then again, you could also play a Phase Hunter and just deal damage, and this is neither. This is a Midrange Hunter list, although on the more aggressive side. But because of the lack of death rattles and not being a direct phase deck, those combined mean that the list is actually unfavored against most other Hunter builds. The list also struggles against Elemental Shaman, and because you're not that well able to stay on the board, then also Aggro Druid is more challenging with this list than with more expensive Hunter builds. Overall though, the deck is a solid performer. This is definitely rank 5 material. Well, I played it rank 4 myself, so yeah, this is still a good deck even despite its relative shortcomings. Obviously, when looking at a budget deck, then the next question is, alright, well, how do I make this deck a non-budget deck? I won't go into too many details in this video, but there are some replacements that you can definitely consider. There are some alternative directions you can take as well. You can keep building it more into the aggressive side, or you can go more for the death rattles and value. Whichever way you choose, the first improvement you should make is to add 2 copies of Kindly Grandmother. Kindly Grandmother is such an immensely powerful early game card. It fits face decks, it fits midrange decks, it's just a true powerhouse of Hunter. And it comes from One Night in Karazhan Adventure, so unfortunately you will have to get the adventure to get that card. But it is the single best improvement you can make to the deck. Another sticky Death Rattle minion that sees almost universal play in Hunter decks is Rat Pack. A 3-mana 2/2 with a Death Rattle to summon 1/1 rats equal to the attack of the minion. Rat Pack is just such a threatening card in Hunter because of Houndmaster. You play Rat Pack on 3. Alright, if the opponent doesn't remove that you're threatening to Houndmaster it on 4, make it a 4/4, then it will summon 4 1/1s when it dies. That's just really powerful. So, no matter which route you're going to go for, Rat Pack would be the second improvement you can make to the deck. And Rat Pack happens to be an epic, so it's pretty expensive. One question many of you might be thinking about right now is, where is Savannah Highmane? A card that is often called the Hunter Legendary. Even though it's not really a legendary, it's a rare card, you can have 2 copies of it in the deck. But thing is, without Kindly Grandmother, without Rat Pack, without having that stickiness on the board, I just don't think you're able to create the circumstances to actually play Highmane. Highmane cannot swing the game by itself on turn 6. Highmane is a pretty slow card after all. It's great if you're already in a good position fighting for the board, or if you can drop it on an empty board, both sides have been cleared out. Highmane can be extremely powerful. But in this particular list, without having access to some of those early game Death Rattles, Highmane just doesn't make the cut. But once you add those in, then you're in a much better position to also add in the Savannah Highmane. There is also a 4th Hunter Death Rattle minion, which is the Infested Wolf, which is also a rare card, so it's not that expensive to craft. But Infested Wolf, while it does see play, it's generally the weakest of these 4, so Kindly Grandmother, Rat Pack and Savannah Highmane all take priority over the Wolf, although the Wolf is also a solid addition that you can go for. Especially if you're going for that sticky Death Rattle based build. On the other hand, if you're going for a more aggressive build, then you could consider adding Leroy Jenkins. Leroy Jenkins can sometimes be a better finisher than the Strangleton Tiger. The Strangleton Tiger, it comes on the board and it has all these synergies with beasts, but the actual effect is going to come down only next turn when it can attack, whereas Leroy with charge can really act as a finisher. So if you develop the deck more into face hunter direction, then Leroy is a good upgrade there. There are lots of cards that you can take out to fit in these improvements. If you have these more sticky boards, then you don't have as much of a need for Direwolf Alpha, as much of a need for Knife Juggler, maybe you don't need Strangleton Tiger as much either. Well, then Golakka Crawler is obviously a tech card. If you don't face the meta to play that in, then that can go. Firefly is an elemental, so it's not that great of a match, but it's good when you don't have all these Death Rattles. So Firefly is also a card that can go when you have something to replace it with. Even Nesting Rock is not always included. So there are a bunch of cards that you can take out to fit in these more expensive cards. And there are a couple of directions that you can take this deck. Keep it aggressive, make it even more aggressive, or make it more Death Rattle focused, make it more sticky, make it more value based. Both are viable strategies at the moment. That said, this budget deck is definitely already good enough to take you to that golden epic season reward. And I have enjoyed playing it a lot. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.